It's 6 p.m. on Friday here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the top stories we're following at this hour. On the final day of her China visit, President Park Geun-hye attends a ceremony to reopen the former headquarters of Korea's provisional government during Japan's colonial rule. South Korea expresses regret over North Korea's statement condemning President Park's remarks from a summit with the Chinese president. Over in Europe, the plight of dying and suffering children intensifies debate over how to respond to the ever-worsening migrant crisis. President Park Geun-hye is in Shanghai on the final leg of her three-day trip to China. There, she attended a ceremony to mark the reopening of the former headquarters of Korea's provisional government during Japan's colonial rule. Our Choi You-sun reports from Shanghai.
Commemorating Korea's fight for independence from Japan's colonial rule, President Park Geun-hye participated in a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the old offices in Shanghai, once occupied by Korea's government in exile between 1926 and 1932. Here, the Korean president emphasized the significance of witnessing the reopening of the old headquarters on the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonization. She also expressed hope that the new and improved historic site will become an important educational venue for future generations. President Park also thanked the Chinese government and the city of Shanghai for their support, including some $600,000 that went into renovating these offices. The Shanghai mayor said the government building is a joint historic asset since Korea and China share the destiny of fighting for independence from Japan's aggressions. President Park also had a chance to meet the descendants of Korea's independence fighters of the colonial period, like Lee Seung-man, the first head of the provisional government who would later become Korea's first president, and Kim Gu, the last head of the government in exile. In a visitor's book, President Park wrote that she will uphold the independence fighters' patriotism and achieve a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. At a meeting with Koreans residing in Shanghai, President Park said their bridging role between Korea and China, specifically Shanghai, have led to great economic cooperation and exchanges of people. Highlighting China's role in resolving the North Korean nuclear issue and bridging a peaceful reunification, she asked the residents to become civilian ambassadors to promote Seoul's unification efforts. Choi You-sun, Arirang News, Shanghai.
And for more on the history and legacy of the Provisional Government of Republic of Korea, Park Ji-won reports.
Korea's provisional government was established in 1919 in Shanghai as a government in exile, 9 years after Japan's forceful annexation of Korea in 1910. Its establishment followed a massive nationwide independence movement against Japanese rule the same year. Prior to 1919, 7 provisional governments had been formed in various regions, including Seoul, the Chinese city of Jilin, and Vladivostok in Russia, but they decided to unite as one provisional government in Shanghai to rightfully represent Korea and facilitate the creation of independence movements. But due to the constant threat of discovery, the provisional government had to keep changing locations. During the years it was active, the exiled government fought hard to achieve liberation for Korea, both on the diplomatic front and by staging attacks on the occupying Japanese. But as diplomatic appeals to the international community largely failed, internal factions emerged. For years, Korea's provisional government was a turbulent mix of liberals, socialists, and nationalists with opposing views on which approach to take. For example, Lee Seung-man, the provisional government's first president and the man who later became South Korea's first president in 1948, emphasized diplomacy targeting Western powers. On the other hand, nationalist Kim Gu, the final president of the provisional government, believed the country could only be taken back through military force. Their opposing views continued even after Korea's liberation. after the unconditional surrender of Japan and Korea's liberation in 1945. Due to a deepening Cold War politics, the United States and the Soviet Union started to temporarily administer Korea by dividing the nation in two, and the provisional government was ignored. Both Lee and Kim were strongly opposed to a foreign trusteeship over Korea. But Lee hoped to have a separate government in the South to avoid the influence of communism. Kim Gu pushed hard for a unified government until his assassination in 1949. Although the role of the provisional government was ignored after Korea's liberation, its legacy remains. It was the provisional government that first proclaimed Korea to be a democratic republic, ending Korea's traditional monarchy system that had ruled the country for thousands of years. The preamble of Korea's constitution also states that it succeeds the cause of the provisional government born of the March 1st independence movement of 1919. In another demonstration of the legacy left by the government in exile, South Korea's full name in Korean, 대한민국, and its national anthem, 애국가, were first officially adopted by the provisional government. 박지원, Arirang News.
South Korea expressed regret today regarding North Korea's slander of President Park Geun-hye over a warning issued to the North during her summit with the Chinese leader. Seoul's Unification Ministry called on the North to sincerely implement the recent landmark deal and cooperate to improve inter-Korean relations. President Park held talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Wednesday, where they warned Pyongyang to refrain from taking actions that escalate tensions on the Korean peninsula. The North's response came on Thursday, labeling President Park's remarks imprudent before threatening to break the recent inter-Korean landmark deal. Meanwhile, North Korea's Choi You-sun reportedly failed to hold one-on-one talks with the Chinese president on Thursday at China's Victory Day celebrations. With the apparent souring of ties, attention now turns to whether North Korea will launch a ballistic missile in October. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The North Korean leader's right-hand man and secretary of the Central Committee of North Korea, Choi You-sun, failed to hold one-on-one talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping during the 70th anniversary ceremony of China's World War II victory. Choi also most likely failed to deliver a handwritten letter from Kim Jong-un. It remains unclear whether Choi spoke to other Chinese government officials during his stay, but experts say it's unlikely the message was delivered since no meeting with the Chinese president took place. Some analysts say Choi was sent to improve Beijing-Pyongyang relations, while others say the North Korean leader's decision not to attend suggests anti-Chinese sentiment. Meanwhile, there's speculation North Korea could launch a long-range missile during the 70th anniversary of the Korean Workers' Party in October. A website specializing in North Korea, 38 North, says satellite imagery has detected movements of structures of the launch pad designed for transferring rocket components. The website added that given the low amount of activity, it is unlikely North Korea could launch a long-range rocket in the coming weeks, as launch preparations, including fueling and pressure testing, requires weeks of preparation. North Korea has enhanced its ballistic missile capabilities, including a 2012 launch that successfully put a satellite into orbit. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly visited a munitions factory Thursday when Chinese leader Xi Jinping and South Korean President Park Geun-hye watched the massive military parade together. North Korea's state-run media outlet, the Korean Central News Agency, reports that Kim inspected an armament factory located in Siniju, a border town near China. Although the state news agency did not disclose the date of Kim's visit to the factory, analysts speculate that the visit coincided with China's military celebrations on Thursday, based on the North's usual pattern of reporting Kim's activities. The agency reported that the North Korean leader praised the factory workers and researchers for developing a world-class measuring instrument to benefit the North's military and its economy. President Park's approval rating is 54%, the highest it has been since the Sewol ferry disaster in April last year. Gallup Korea says it's a 20 percentage point surge from 2 weeks ago. The sudden rise in popularity follows the diffusing of military tensions with North Korea last month and her trip to China. Her approval ratings dropped dramatically last year after the ferry disaster that killed over 300 people. President Park received her lowest approval ratings of 29% after the tax scheme fiasco at the beginning of the year and again during the height of the MERS outbreak in June. A handful of emerging markets have suffered unprecedented drops in their stock markets and currency following China's worse-than-expected economic slowdown and devaluation of its currency. Korea also struggles with market volatility. Han Da-eun has the details.
China's economic woes are weighing down on the Korean government's outlook for growth next year. During an interview with the Wall Street Journal in Turkey on Friday, Seoul's finance minister Choi You-sun said, factoring in China's slowdown, Seoul has revised its growth outlook for 2016 to 3.3%, down from its previous forecast of 3.5%. But it kept this year's projection unchanged at 3.1%, saying Seoul can achieve growth in the 3% range if the country succeeds in reviving the economy through structural reforms. Che also said he expects a soft landing for Beijing and that Seoul will adapt to the challenges with pumped-up approaches. Heightened focus on trade, such as boosting exports in the services sector, would be one of them, and making optimum conditions with a bilateral free trade deal both countries aim to soon ratify. Experts have touted the resiliency of the Korean economy following the 2008 global financial crisis compared to other emerging economies. They've also emphasized how the country does not depend as heavily on commodities or raw materials.
Considering our market size, foreigners' cash outflow was not as severe as it was in other Asian countries.
Korea's financial health has improved, with its short-term debt remaining in the 30% range of total foreign borrowings, down from 50% range in 2008. Seoul's foreign reserves ranks 6th in the world, backed by its streak of current account surplus, and serves as a safety net for its economy. On the U.S. Fed's possible rate hike later this year, Seoul's finance minister said that it is unlikely Korea will see massive cash outflow as investors now realize Asia's fourth largest economy is relatively safer than other markets. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Europe's refugee crisis is intensifying by the day, with the continent's leaders unable to come up with a coherent plan. In the latest flashpoint, scuffles broke out in Hungary on Thursday as refugees clashed with the local authorities. Son Jung-in has more.
On Thursday, refugees who had been camped outside a railway station in Budapest surged onto the platform as soon as police withdrew. The station has become a focal point of the crisis as tens of thousands of refugees seek to reach northern and western Europe. The refugees managed to get on a train, but before long, they were forced off by police. Clashes broke out as the refugees refused to go to camps set up by the authorities, fearing they would not be treated with proper respect.
They bring us here. We don't know why.
No camp.
We don't need to stay on the camp, and we don't need to stay in Hungary.
As the humanitarian crisis deepens, EU leaders can't agree on what needs to be done. Hungary, which says it has over 2,000 refugees arriving in the country every day, plans to revise its migration laws and deport those without proper documentation.
Hungary did everything which was possible in order to keep the regulations. We create just now in the Hungarian parliament a new package of regulations. We set up a physical barrier, and all these together can provide a new situation in Hungary and in Europe from the 15th of September.
But Germany and France are urging Eastern European member states to cope with the situation together and shoulder their share of the burden. They plan to present joint proposals for a fair distribution of refugees within the EU. European Council President Donald Tusk supported the plan, saying at least 100,000 refugees should be distributed across EU member nations. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, the coffins containing the bodies of a Syrian child, his 5-year-old brother, and their mother, who drowned off the coast of Turkey on Wednesday, have arrived in Istanbul. The father, who tried in vain to save his family as their boat capsized, says he no longer has a reason to live.
They would wake me up in the morning saying, "Daddy, let us play." Everything is gone now. I just want to sit next to the grave of my children and my wife and rest.
The boy and his family were among 12 refugees crammed onto a 5-meter-long rubber boat for the journey to Greece. The photo of the 3-year-old boy has triggered fresh calls for the international community to deal with the growing refugee crisis. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time, so stay tuned and goodbye for now.